It's the first time that we can ever invest in something like this before the big money. And not only that, it's the first time that we can know about it. Because 30 years ago, you never would have known about this because you didn't have the internet to find out about it. This is insane. And what really breaks my heart and really pisses me off is we have it's not all their fault because a lot of people are preaching these things because they don't know better. It's a lack of knowledge. But you have some very influential people that are coming from real estate and different industries, maybe marketing. They made millions and millions of dollars, almost billions of dollars. And they're telling everybody, and these are influential people, they're respected for the industries they came from and their image, right? They're smart, they're business people, but they're telling people like you should only look at Bitcoin. Like everything else is distraction, just focus on Bitcoin. When Bitcoin is literally 2,000 times more expensive. You have to look at the market cap, guys. 2,000 times more expensive than a project like Quant. And it'll probably peak maybe 200, 300,000. I'm not sure. But you have people literally saying like only focus on Bitcoin. And many of them are saying that because it's a lack of knowledge. We've been in this for years, so we know. But I know I forgive them. But it just breaks my heart. It's just so crazy because here we have the greatest opportunity in history. And people are saying, look at Bitcoin when we have projects like XDC, HBAR, Quant, XLM, like all other projects too, like projects in AI. And I mean, there's many other projects that you can probably do better than Bitcoin, like that you're going to do better. And also, I want to add one thing too. The first technology was never the best technology.
Wire, AOL, you're looking at it.
They all disappeared. Netscape, gone. The first internet companies didn't even survive. I'm not saying Bitcoin won't survive, but mark my words, in 5 to 10 years from now, when the industry gets more mature and people realize like, okay, this is a store of value. It's already like 5 trillion, 10 trillion or whatever. And now we have utility. Once it matures, like first of all, like my bottom line is the first invention never even survived.
Right.
First websites, the first internet companies, AOL, it didn't survive. The first airplane was not the best airplane. The first microwave, the first car was not the best car. The first airplane was not the best airplane. The first microwave, the first TV, the first VCR, the first DVD player, it was not the best and they didn't survive. So why people are thinking that Bitcoin is the only and best one? Logically, historically, it does not make sense.
Do you believe that your XRP, XLM, XDC, HBAR, QNT, Chainlink utility assets, will they flip Bitcoin at some point? Will Bitcoin remain the number one coin forever?
No, some of them have to flip. I think, for me, in my opinion, they absolutely have to flip it. There's no way, because of the utility. And also, people are going to look to see where profit can be made. Like right now, this is completely new. People were told by mainstream media Bitcoin was crap. Now they're being told by mainstream media is the only token that you should look into. Bitcoin, Ethereum is the only thing you should look into. So they're just going by what they're being told. They don't understand anything about market cap, use cases, charts. They don't understand any of that, which is, I'm not putting them down for it. I'm just saying it's a fact. The retailers are coming in right now. 90% of retail are coming in blind. They're looking at Bitcoin. But eventually, like in 5 years from now, when you look at the utility of other projects ramping up like crazy, insane, plus the fact that people are going to get more knowledgeable about this, and they're going to realize, okay, Bitcoin is maybe, 10 trillion. It's not moving. Like, again, people are going to, in 10 years from now, it's not going to be the same knowledge that we have today. And it's not going to be the same utility, and it's not going to have the same adoption and everything. To me, it is absolutely impossible that Bitcoin can still be first in 5, 10 years from now.
When you're looking at a 50, 70, $100 trillion total crypto market cap, I don't sit there and think that Bitcoin is still going to have a 50, 60% market cap dominance. That the institutions, the governments, the enterprises are going to be the ones that'll bring this market from 4 trillion to 20 trillion, 50 trillion to 100 trillion. Once institutional money comes in, and we can already see, look at the breadcrumbs, we can already see the networks that they're looking, they're testing, they're running pilots. We could see all of the breadcrumbs of the chains that they are integrating in the utility assets. When this market does go to 50, 70, 100 trillion in due time, I don't think Bitcoin's going to have 50, 60% market cap dominance. I think at that point, you're going to see a $1 trillion market cap for XRP or XLM or QNT, maybe even multitudes of more. It's going to be a multi-chain future, and they're all going to complement themselves in many ways. I don't think Bitcoin's going to have that 50, 60% market cap dominance once mass institutional adoption's there.
It can't with time. How much did you say for XRP, for example?
Example
of market cap?
I said 1 trillion. Very conservative.
Oh, yeah.
I've even done a video on a $10 trillion market cap and why that's peanuts. But yeah, just for argument's sake, because there's people that say, oh, $1 trillion, no way. It's very conservatively, all your utility assets will get to
let me
that.
back you up on that. So what people need to understand is, okay, so we know XRP is going to bridge the money for the Bank of England. And if you do your research, well, not you, but I mean people in general, it's a way of saying
Yep.
people do their research on XRP, they know that FedNow is literally built on the XRP ledger. FedNow is the modernization of the payment system in the US, and it's using the XRP ledger. That's a fact. They were chosen by the Faster Payment Task Force years ago. Ripple was a chosen company to modernize the system. It's a long story, very deep rabbit hole, but if you do your research, you come to the conclusion that FedNow runs on Ripple. So what people don't realize here, when people say that XRP cannot go to 10 trillion, 20 trillion, 100 trillion, and they can't flip Bitcoin, well, let me tell you something, and I would like to know how you're going to argue against this one. The Bank of England is one central bank out of 170 central banks. There's 170 to 180 central banks in the world. We know that the Bank of England is a paid customer of Ripple for over 6 years now. We know Bank of England and will settle with XRP. Same for the Federal Reserve and same for the Hong Kong Monetary Authority and majority of central banks, all central banks. We know they're going to settle cross-border through XRP. Now, the Bank of England, the Bank of England is one central bank out of 180 central banks that will be using XRP, and it does more volume in one day than all of the Bitcoin does. It does more volume in one day, the Bank of England, than Bitcoin does in a whole year.
Yep.
And this is one central bank. There's 170 to 180 central banks in the world. Not all big like the Bank of England. The Bank of England does more volume in one day than Bitcoin does in a whole year. And it's going to use XRP to settle transactions. And their CBDC is being built on the CBDC, the private CBDC platform that Ripple has that allows central banks to build CBDCs on the XRP ledger. These are private CBDC ledgers that they're using to build CBDCs. And when it comes to settling cross-border, they have to use the XRP public ledger. They have to touch a public ledger. And the Bank of England does more volume in one day than Bitcoin does in a whole year. And this is one central bank. So don't tell me that XRP can't go to $50. If you're saying it can't, okay, you don't know the facts. You haven't done your research. And it's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. But when it comes to XRP, if you think XRP can't hit $10 or $50, you have not done your research.
This is why I brought him on.
That's fine.
This is exactly why I brought him on.
Well, facts are facts, right? It's just that I can't. Again, I'm not writing in stone that's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not writing in stone that's going to happen. But to say that it can't is absolutely ridiculous. It just can't.
And they can never tell you why unless they say market cap would be too high. But then again, you're already exposing to me, one, you don't understand what market cap is, and two, you don't understand the utility asset that you're pretending to understand. Market cap too high is one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard. And I've never heard of another argument as to why it couldn't go to that besides that.
Yeah, it's based on volume and demand, right? Like Bitcoin, I know it's not all based on volume because it has to do with the order books and the liquidity and everything like that. But I mean, the fact that the Bank of England will use XRP for settlement and it does more volume in one day than Bitcoin does in a whole year, and Bitcoin's at 2 trillion, why can't XRP go to 2 trillion market cap? I mean, come on. It's just mad is mad.
Let me tell you.
Tell me that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, if you think about the fact that, and it's Gilbert Verdian, the CEO of Quant, that said that. He said, like, right now, like, this is peanuts. Like, if you look at the blockchain industry, if you look at crypto, like, the volume, it's peanuts. He says the Bank of England does more volume in one day than Bitcoin does in a whole year. It's peanuts. So, like, if that's the case, and Bitcoin is at 2 trillion market cap or whatever, and you say that XRP can't go to 10 trillion or 2 trillion or whatever, again, this is one central banks out of 170 central banks, my friend. This is not including the DTCC. We know they're working with Ripple that settles 3.5 quadrillion per year, and Swift that does 9 trillion per day, or it's 5 to 7 trillion, per day. And so it's just you're like, it's, if you're telling me it can't reach $20 or $50, you're telling me that 2 plus 2 is not 4.
Jesse,
telling me that 1 plus 1 is not 2.
You're not bullish enough. You're not bullish enough.
I agree.
Let me tie you back into QNT. I got just a few more with QNT. You have hinted that Quant is quietly being used with global sandbox programs, and the BIS keeps stress testing interoperability for central bank digital currencies. Isn't that basically what Quant's overledger's role is?
Yeah, the Quant is any to any, so it allows interoperability between all the blockchains, all the legacy systems. Quant will allow to pick this chain for the smart contract and then this chain for something else, and then the XRP ledger for settlement. It's an overlay. So, like when you want to use that unified ledger, which is the XRP ledger, to settle that transaction, that's going to be that one of the blockchain that's being used within your multi-chain application that you've built using Quant. So, Quant allows, like I said, the whole world to build multi-chain applications and bring numerous use cases to CBDCs.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, the underlying layer is the central bank money. Unfortunately, it's the sovereign government money. It's crap, and they're printing tons of it, and it's losing its value. It's losing its purchasing power. That's why we see inflation. They want you to believe that, oh, the prices of everything's going up because it's this country or it's this person here that's doing that. It's this president or no. They're printing too much money. They're printing money. They're devaluing the currency.
Yep.
Therefore, when you buy something, you need to put more of those dollars to buy that same thing. So if you want to buy a house, you need to pay more of your dollars because your dollar lost its purchasing power. It lost its value because they put too much of it in circulation. So because people think like, oh, I go to a restaurant now and wow, it's $30 instead of $15. It's all because of Putin. No. Stop listening to mainstream media, first of all. Okay, it's not Putin's fault that your money's worthless. Okay, and it's not Trump's fault either. It's because they're printing too much money. Not guy's fault or dad's guy's fault. It's they're printing too much money. So when you buy something, you need to pay more of those dollars because your currency lost its purchasing power. It lost its value. So they're saying, hey, listen, you got to give me more of those dollars because it's not worth what it used to be. And that's the problem. Where the heck was I going with that?
Well, it's the endless cycle. I believe it was the president of Ecuador came and spoke about what the Federal Reserve is doing. They're printing endless amounts of money and then they're buying the treasuries with the money. And it just ends up being this giant entire circle that devalues your dollar. And before you realize it, you're sitting there like, I can't afford nothing.
Exactly. But I don't know why. Oh, yes. Yeah, I want to say something about those sandboxes that's really, really important. So yeah, so Quant is what, because I was saying that the fiat currency, sovereign means government currency. So national currencies, right? The US dollar, the euro, the Canadian dollar, the peso, whatever. So that's unfortunately, the underlying layer of money. It's like the trunk of the tree. Everything we do has to use that money. Quant is what's going to be used to build all these use cases for this money. But because Quant is allowing you to, like I said, pick the best features of each blockchain and build MDApps and bring all these sorts of different use cases, right? So I want to talk about the sandboxes because you brought a really good point here. So what people don't realize, I created one of my videos on my playlist on YouTube talks about these sandboxes. And what's happening right now is Quant's product allows central banks, commercial banks, and the biggest fintech companies in the world to build multi-chain applications in a sandbox environment, fully test it in like a live environment, almost like it's live, fully test it rigorously as if it's live before going live.
Without risking real money.
Exactly. And all of these corporations, central banks, commercial banks, fintechs that are building on Quant right now, okay, building hundreds of use cases for these CBDCs, don't have to buy the Quant license yet. They only have to buy the Quant license when Quant goes live. And there's these massive sandboxes. If you guys watch my sandbox video, I think it's the 4th or 5th one on my YouTube playlist, the Quant playlist, YouTube, you'll see the sizes of these sandbox, the UK sandbox, the Roslyn sandbox, the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. Same for the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. The Chain project, any massive project that Quant has, including all these ridiculously massive sandboxes, they don't have to use the token yet until they go live.
So I had made a video on the Quant sandbox and we were talking about the fees. And then you had corrected me stating that it's actually indicated specifically to each partner's volume.
So the license, and this, for big corporations, is going to be private. I think Gilbert Vernier made it pretty clear that the deals they do with certain clients, it's not public because he said that's just how it is. IBM doesn't want Microsoft to know how much they're paying for a Quant license to do business with Quant. It's the way the corporate world works, right? So he explained that because people were like, why don't you make it public how much these corporations are going to pay? Well, it doesn't work like that in corporate world. But if you look at their utility token, Quant was very clear that, first of all, you cannot do any transaction on Quant without using QNT. You have to pay a certain fee. You need to use QNT to validate the transaction. But when you're sending a transaction over Quant, you need QNT, and the amount of QNT that you're going to need is going to depend on the size of the transaction. That's the first thing. The second thing is, like you said, how much these corporations are going to pay for these licenses to use Quant depends on the amount of users, the amount of employees, the amount of volume, the type of transactions, and the type of applications, for example. And that's going to determine how much they're going to pay for these licenses. My understanding from Quant, Gilbert Verdian said, like, he used to work for a company, and I think they were paying $200 million per year for a license. Or maybe it was not per year, but I think it was per year. When you're buying software licenses and like these massive licenses to like operate a system like the real-time gross settlement system, which is the infrastructure for a nation, these licenses are not cheap. Like, you pay a lot of money if like when IBM or these companies like literally set up the RTGS for a nation, like there's not. So anyway, so like these licenses are not going to be cheap. Like some of these licenses, I'm thinking some will pay 50, 100, maybe 200, and just speculation based on what I heard Gilbert say, but I think some of them, the biggest ones, they might pay $100 million per year, 50 million or 2 million or maybe 200 million. I don't know, because I think that they're going to build an application and they're going to settle all the value for the Bank of England, let's say. Like, that license is not going to be 100,000.
It's not going to be the same for a medium enterprise, small medium enterprise.
No, like IBM, Microsoft, because again, it's based on, and you can see that if you Google search a Quant QNT utility token, your viewers will find a picture, and it talks about all the 7 utility, like if everything that demands the QNT token to be used within Quant Overledger. And one of them is they have to buy a license. So when they buy the license, they can pay in fiat, and you know this, but they pay with euro or Canadian dollars, whatever. They pay with whatever dollar they want, and Quant automatically converts this into QNT and locks up the QNT in treasury for the duration of the license, which is 1 year. After a year, if they renew, which they'll have to renew, everybody's going to renew it. This is what people have to understand too. Like, if Quant is successful and it is what we think it is, okay, everybody has to renew their license. Like, do you know anybody today that says, I don't need my computer anymore?
Yeah, I'm running a corporation with 100 employees.
I don't need a computer. Like, everybody's going to need to renew their licenses. Now, how much QNT that's going to demand is going to depend again on the deal that Quant does with them, how many users, the volume, the use cases, how many employees they have, and so on, and how many developers that they're using to develop different apps, blah, 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 and the price of the token. So if the price of the token is $2,000 instead of 100, well, that means there's less token being locked up. So the token gets released out of the treasury, the license is renewed, and then whatever it costs goes back in. Because again, it's how much is locked up is going to depend on what.
Yeah.
So if the license is, let's say, $1 million and the QNT token is $2,000 now, well, it only takes 5,000 tokens to be locked up. Rather than if the license was 1 million and token was only $100, then you needed 10,000 tokens to be locked up. So it's how many locked up at renewal just depends on what the price of the token is at the time. But my point is, when they're buying these licenses, it has to lock up the token. They wanted to make it seamless for these corporations so they can just pay in fiat, because like corporations don't want to have to buy QNT and hold that on their books. He made the system so that obviously the world can adopt it. He knew what corporations needed. So you just pay your license and we'll deal with the utility in the back end. Pay us with your fiat, pay us with whatever you want, euro, Canadian, US dollar, whatever. And automatically our treasury will lock up, convert it, and they'll go buy it off the exchanges. They have partnerships with Coinbase and other exchanges to go get the QNT token. So they're either going to take it from their treasury, or technically with the exchanges, likely it's with the exchanges, they have to go buy the tokens and lock it up in their treasury for the duration of the license. They're not forcing corporations to pay with QNT because it's too convoluted. It's a big mess. Corporations don't want to have to deal with, okay, I got to get this many tokens. I have to swamp it for this. And then my accountant's going to have to, no, it doesn't work. They just pay your $2 million fee. Like I say, pay it to Quant. Quant's going to automatically convert it to QNT and lock up the QNT.
Which makes so much sense with script pay, annual licensing subscriptions. And I'm sensing this common strategy of eating up massive amounts of the supply and injecting trillions and trillions of dollars into the ecosystems, whether it's QNT, HBAR, Link. I think that they've all kind of figured out their own equation. So we talked a little bit about Quant with the BIS. I want to ask you a little bit about Quant and the IMF. Could Quant's Overledger eventually connect to not just banks, but IMF level systems?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Any system, any bank. It's all the same. Any to any. any system, any software, any database, it doesn't matter what kind of software, database, any RTGS system, payment system, any to any. And on their website years ago, it said that they had created I think it's called the multi-token lockup or something for the IMF.
Yeah.
I think it's multi-token lockup or whatever. So yeah, they're already connected to the IMF because they created a certain structure for the IMF. I think it's called the multi-token lockup or something. But indirectly, like if my thesis is correct, where the XRP ledger or RippleNet gets passed on to IMF, or I don't know, like IMF ends up managing the escrow or the XRP ledger or whatever. I'm not sure how that's really going to look exactly, but technically, because Quant is providing the interoperability and programmability and everything for the money and for the unified ledger, people have to understand the unified ledger being the XRP ledger is one of the blockchains. It just so happens to be an internet at the same time. It's the internet of value. It's called the internet of value. But it's just one of the blockchain that Quant allows the whole world to connect to. So technically, if we say, well, the XRP ledger, people behind the XRP ledger is the IMF, but I'm not sure, right? Because the IMF has talked about how they need to have some reform and their SDR could be looking different or whatever. They talked about reform. So I don't know, like, is it the IMF gets a portion and then all the others, like the 20 G20 central banks or G10 or whatever, G7 get the majority of the rest? I don't know how it's structured, obviously, but I just know Ripple's not your normal company. And they're doing exactly what the IMF tried to do. So I guess I'm answering your question saying, like, indirectly, Quant is providing the interoperability or the unified ledger so the world can tap into it. And since the XRP ledger was technically built for the central banks and the IMF, then technically Quant is providing that. Technically, the answer is yes, if that makes sense.
So